I'm Ben Van Roy from Human Digital, and this is Canned, the marketing podcast. This week, a hot new bombshell enters the villa. We're joined by our first guest, Daz Martin from Spark, to share the inside story of Spark Accelerate, one of New Zealand's biggest owned events. In this episode of Canned, Steph and I talk about deal rooms, immersive brand activations, and why events are such a great channel for building customer relationships, testing ideas, and getting real-time feedback.
Hey Ben, how's it going?
Hey Steph, it's good. I am in a different spot this week. I'm in this hotel room in Sydney and I'm looking out the window and it's pretty grey and dreary, but it's still good. It's Sydney. I love it here.
So tell me about your week. What's been happening?
Yeah, it's been a busy week this week. Lots of client meetings, lots of pitches, lots of work. But made it to Sydney. I flew in this morning on I took a 7:30 a.m. flight over here and landed, and I've had coffee and I've had lunch and I've checked in. Here for some client meetings and the Australian Marketing Institute Awards lunch tomorrow, which will be good fun. Really looking forward to it.
Oh, that sounds exciting. Why are you attending the awards? What's happening there?
So attending the awards to celebrate some client wins and to see what's happening in the Australian scene.
Cool.
What's happening in your world, Steph?
Oh, well, this week I was fortunate enough to be invited to go along to Media Spotlight, which is put on by the Communications Council. But yeah, I was invited by my media agency for Hell Pizza, and it was really cool. Essentially, it was a morning of 4 speakers really talking about kind of what's happening in that media landscape. And we all know, we hear the words fragmentation of media all the time, but I think what was super interesting, we had Zoe Skaman and Eugene Healy come and speak. And
love Eugene.
So great.
Amazing.
Just amazing. I wasn't familiar with him prior to Wednesday, but they both really spoke about how social media now is, and generally speaking, is not broadcast media. All of the good stuff is happening behind closed doors virtually. So it's things like Discord, it's things like Twitch, it's Snapchat channels, it's the conversations that are happening in WhatsApp groups, and how hard that is for brands to barge our way in and get attention. And Eugene just did an amazing job of summarizing that. And if you ever, I would just highly recommend following him, Eugene Healy.
We'll share it in the show notes. Check it out.
Yeah, he was great. And Zoe Skaman was also amazing. So they both had very similar views and talking about how, it's just so hard to reach people now in a meaningful way on social media effectively. And then the other thing that's been happening in my world is I've been in judging mode for the last probably 4 or 5 weeks, and the lead judges for the Auckland Business Chamber for the 2 Degrees Business Awards met this week, and we have selected our finalists, which is super exciting. And so now we kick into visiting those finalists. So life will be a bit busy, I think, in the next 5 weeks. But yeah, it's always such a joy to read those entries and to go and see inside those businesses. And from a consumer perspective, there's a couple of well-known brands in there, so watch this space.
Brilliant. And I've been following Eugene for a while. Actually, I had a bit of a fangirl moment in Cannes. I've been watching him on Instagram mostly. He does really good, sassy reels. He tells it like it is, but it was lucky to see him at Adweek House. He was attending with our friends from Tracksuit. So, really, really good to meet him in person in France.
He loves those tracksuit guys. He mentioned them in his presentation as well. So that was great. Now, one of the things I think was on both of our lists this week was, and literally every podcast I listened to was ChatGPT 5.
Indeed. So they rolled it out quickly in true tech style. They just released it and there was a big backlash. So I think for a number of reasons, the 2 key ones that I've picked up on is number one, ChatGPT number 5 didn't let you choose your model. So for the advanced AI or ChatGPT is. They were really frustrated that the model was kind of routing them automatically.
Yeah.
And then the second one was throttling, which is where once you hit a limit of processing, they would basically switch you off and say, you're not allowed to use it till, next month or next week. So
Even if you're a paid member, does that?
Even if you're paid.
I see.
So there are limits in the system. So people were getting frustrated with that. So they've rolled it back. You can still use it, but I think they are adjusting it. But but it's a big trend, and this is how products get released. They get released quickly and they get iterated. So very, very, very quick changes happening at ChatGPT.
I heard a lot of commentary around that about the fact that it was auto-choosing, I guess how it was searching, and there are definitely people who want to use you don't have to use the full searching engine if you're just looking for something really simple, because it takes a lot of processing power to do deep think, right? So to kind of get a complicated answer. So it would be good if that selection option, I think, was back there.
Because we're all so impatient. We want the answer in, 3 or 4 seconds. I think we're used to that with search, where, your results will spit out in a matter of seconds. And I know some people get frustrated if they have to wait for the AI to process. So it's AI whiplash.
Yeah, I know, tell me.
So what are we talking about this week, Steph?
Okay, I'm actually really excited about this. This is a subject that's really dear to my heart, and what I love about what we're about to talk about is that it's just as relevant in that B2B space as it is in B2C. So obviously, working in the marketing world, you've got your above the line spend, but there's a really big part of marketing that is based in events. And, I come from a background where events are so integral to brand building. And so today we're going to talk about when you should use events, the difference between owned events and when you turn up and show up at other ones. And how do you build your marketing plan in and around those events and pop them into your marketing calendar at a time that makes sense, and be really choiceful about when you're using them. Let's dive into the world of events.
Yeah, so events are really big in B2B. There is a big space, and I think a lot of marketing budget has gone to events traditionally, and it is a great way to build relationships. And B2B relationships are very much built face-to-face. If you think about old school, built on the golf course, built over a beer, over a wine, this is where people come together and form friendships and relationships. So I think that's really key for B2B, especially when you've got these long buying cycles. You really have to get to know the product, the solution, the team that's going to be supporting you. Having that face-to-face time is key. And having events is key because you can get in front of both existing clients that are in your pipeline, so you can continue to build that trust with them, sometimes asking for the sale. One thing I've seen recently at industry events is deal rooms. I've been to a couple of B2B events, and the whole design of the event space is amazing, and people put a lot of resource into it. But I went to All Energy Australia last year, and one of the big things that people had in their spaces were these deal rooms, which were like these really cool rooms with, tables and chairs, obviously, because people need to sit down and have a coffee. But
must sit down whilst making a deal. Cannot do one standing up.
Making a deal, yeah. So very, very important.
That's a good point. So to go, look, I haven't heard of a deal room. Is that almost like you're buying a car and they're whisking you in and you're sealing the deal? Do you have to buy? Or is this just so you'll get more information?
I think it's rooms. So there are rooms where discussions can happen. So if you're running a B2B event, typically you'll have your marketing team there, but you'll have your sales team as well. So the sales team will be there, ready to talk to existing and prospective clients. And sometimes, you need to have a conversation that you can't have on the shop floor. You need to go into a room where you can talk about pricing, talk about details of the deal. So I think, that's where the deal room comes in. You're not necessarily making the sale, but it's a space where you can have that more in-depth, maybe more private conversation.
I think it's a really good idea because it gives you that opportunity to have a more in-depth conversation.
But what about B2C? Like, do B2C have events, Steph?
So bearing in mind that a lot of my work has been done in the alcohol space. So let me tell you about I fundamentally believe, and when you're in brand world, an event is one of the best ways to build connection with people. And, I'm going to use the alcohol example because it's a really nice, easy one. When I've done quite a few immersive events. When I worked on Bombay Sapphire, we had something called the Bombay Sapphire Botanicals, and it was a completely owned experience where you were taken through all of the botanicals in the gin. At one stage, we had we literally had a sensory experience that you got invited to, where you could really really understand the origin of the brand. And we sold tickets to things. I've done an Asahi, same thing, to bring the brand to life. And so that would be an example of, really owned experience and building that brand love and kind of that. And it also gives you, if it's done really well, earned PR and earned media, because it's exciting enough that people want to know about it. But, going back again to the alcohol space, the really obvious ones there about events are turning up at beer festivals. I've poured lots of beer. Varna's a really great one. You turn up there, and Garage Project does this so well. I don't know. Have you ever been to Beer Varna?
I haven't.
It's amazing. So if you were somebody who went to Beer Varna, you would know that Garage Project basically own that space, and their activations are huge. But you can still turn up as a small independent brewer and still give people that experience. And you, in that case, get to speak to the brewer, or and they'll take you through and go, well, this is these are flavors of X, Y, and Z, and this is a limited edition. So it is so important, I think, in consumer land. If you're selling a product, particularly, it just gives people that opportunity to interact with it. And experience it. And
why would a brand choose to attend an event? Let's say you're sampling beer. Why not just sample at Woolies or Pack and Save?
Completely the environment that you're in, right? So if you think about the occasion, and an occasion is we all drink different things depending on the occasion. You and I will choose to drink a wine at a certain time of day and a beer at another. But the reason yes, you could sample in a Woolies, but you've captured somebody in the middle of their grocery shop for the week. It's probably not the best environment to have a really in-depth conversation. You want to sort of fish where the fish are and go where people are, more open and receptive to hearing about your brand. And let's not forget that these events are also a wonderful way to get, and I think this is true for B2B or B2C, such a great way to get customer feedback in real time. But, you're having a catch up with a client, they're really, by the questions that they ask you, you'll get an insight as to what are the things that are bothering them, what's on their mind. Customers, if you've got a range of products in front of them, will go, oh, I don't like that one. That's, Would you say that's true?
It's the same with B2B. Being able to put products on display and getting feedback real time is exactly what B2B events are about as well. There was a time where I was working at the Commonwealth Bank in digital payments, and we would attend events and we would have essentially the payments product, whether that be a terminal that you're tapping your card on or a website where you're entering your card details. We would have those for attendees to test and trial for exactly that reason, to see how it works, to touch it, to feel it, to try it out, and to give us feedback.
Yeah, it's nothing like that. Really understanding your customers and getting that real time feedback. It's almost like market. I would honestly say it's like market research. And one of the things I think that always works really well when you've done an event, whether you've put an event on or you've actually turned up somewhere, is to collate all of that feedback in a central environment. All of the you'll often get lots of different people within a team working an event, and so really good to have a debrief and go, what were the things that what were we hearing, and were there some similarities? You can capture feedback in a formal way by getting people to fill in a survey, but actually also just getting everyone together afterwards and going, what were we hearing?
Yeah. And I think this is part of the when you're thinking about an event, what is the before, the during, and the after? And I think as marketers, because we are all so busy, a lot of the work gets put in before. So it's all of the planning and, it's getting people to turn up and, getting the catering, getting all of the stands set up, all of the work. And it's a lot of work that goes in before. And then you kind of get to the event, and then the little energy you have left is executing that event flawlessly so that everyone that attends has a great experience, and then you get to the end and you basically collapse.
Oh, it's a lot of work, right?
But then you have to do more. Then you have to do your post event and send out surveys and get more interaction.
Yeah, and I think so. If I think about, sometimes it can be hard to get money to attend an event. If you're exhibiting somewhere, the stand cost alone can be thousands of dollars, and then you're like, right, well, how much will I spend on branding my stand? How many will I have my own team working it, or will I pay brand ambassadors? Am I selling anything at this event, or is this literally just a pay to play and have some presence? And so, in a lot of the companies that I've worked for, you would look at the event budget and go, okay, but we're really thinking carefully about why we need to be there. Two of the businesses that I work with this year went to field days, which was, and they're food businesses. So, what was the correlation there? But it was, you think about the kinds of people that go, and they're looking to spend. They've got some disposable income. So I think the other thing is thinking about, is your customer going to be there?
And then there's the different types of events. I mean, you've got the owned events where it is all about your brand, and maybe you bring along partners. Then you've got the industry events that you can attend. And then there's small events. A lot of people, when they think about events, they think of, a big stadium full of, hundreds or thousands of people. But an event can be 5 people, right? Like it doesn't have to be massive.
But and look back to your golf analogy. I definitely have worked with businesses in that B2B space who are like, we will identify maybe high net worth or really those relationships that you need to nurture. So those key decision makers, and put on an intimate dinner for them. A hosted experience can be just as valuable and doesn't have to cost a lot of money. And I would also say super important to have a balance of those. You've got your high touch, more intimate kind of thing with those key decision makers, and then you might want to go slightly broader for just exposing your offering and to more people. I think is another key way of doing it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of owned events,
yes,
we've got a guest. This is our first guest on the pod.
Yes.
So Can Marketing, that we are so early, but we do have a guest. So Daz Martin is joining us from Spark, and he is going to tell us all about Spark Accelerate.
And what better example of an owned event than one of New Zealand's biggest telcos?
100%. Cool. So we're joined by Daz. So this is our events episode, and we're talking everything events. And Daz is joining us from Spark. Daz, tell us a bit about yourself.
Hey, yeah. So as Jen said, I'm an event producer, director, currently working for Spark in their government and enterprise division. So that is all of our B2B customers that are 100 staff or over. So really like the biggest companies in New Zealand. I've been here for about a year. My background, I've been in events for about 20 years, and that's covered a whole range of things. I've done everything from fashion shows and gigs and concerts and festivals through to large-scale conferences, trade shows, and anything else you can think of in between. So it's a great industry, and I really love it.
So it sounds like we've got the right person on board to talk about events today. Welcome, Daz.
Spark Accelerate last year was amazing. I was lucky enough to come along to some of the sessions, and Daz, you did a really good job of putting that whole thing together and running it. It would be great for you to share a bit about how that came about and your experience with Spark Accelerate.
I guess my role for Spark Accelerate, I call myself the chief cat herder, because it is a really huge project that touches the entirety of the enterprise and government division. All of our product people, all of our sales people are all involved. On the day, we had 120 staff, I believe, on site on top of all the customers. So it's a big project. And Spark Accelerate came around really because the company was looking for a way to A, connect with their customers, but B, to shift like brand perception around what Spark does in the enterprise and government space. I sort of say to a lot of people, you say Spark to anyone and you automatically think, mobile phones and your home broadband. But in reality, there's like a whole lot more that Spark does, particularly in that B2B space, which is, all their satellite connectivity, all of your like smart meeting room solutions, all of IoT devices and like converged technology. There's 11 product portfolios that sit within our division. So they wanted to really showcase that and showcase the breadth of what we offer, and to shift that brand perception from just being a telco through to being a like full service technology provider. So that was what the idea there. And Spark being Spark basically has touch points with any business in New Zealand that falls in that enterprise and government space.
How long was, just for those who may not understand what Accelerate was, how long did the event run for?
Yeah, so the event itself was a day and a half. So capacity was about 700 people, and we filled it up. And yeah, so the experience of that was, not too dissimilar to a kind of relatively standard conference format, a mixture of, keynote speakers, and we brought in some amazing speakers from overseas to be those sort of hero content moments. We had, panel sessions with customers and other experts, and then a range of breakout sessions, which were led by Spark. And the one piece of the puzzle that was a little bit different was the trade show element, that rather than having like a whole lot of external people exhibiting their wares, we took inspiration from an art gallery and did a sort of very bespoke built expo space, where each kind of stand was a showcase of the different product and service lines. So it was really just showing off Spark's capabilities.
So it was a fully contained branded event then, right? So literally wholly Spark. We were in Spark land at Spark Accelerate.
Yeah, it was basically Spark's big playground.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And you did bring in partners as well. So it was Spark and Spark's supporting partners. Do you want to tell us a bit about some of the partners that were there?
Yeah, so the partnership piece, I guess, for last year being the first one, we really owned that space. That the partners coming in was obviously for Spark. We have a lot of vendors that we, their solutions fall under ours. So people like Cisco, people like, AWS, where we sell, their products. We're kind of the middleman. So we had them involved. This year, we're in planning for this year's event, and we've amped up that partner piece quite a lot to officially bring people on board as like paying partners, where they are getting a lot more brand presence and a lot more integration into the event. But it makes sense for us that we do showcase the partners that we work with, because it gives us credibility as well in terms of, the products that we offer to our customers. So we want to show that we're working with, Microsoft and Google and AWS and all these amazing brands on our customers' behalf.
Awesome.
And you used technology during the event really well. I saw a lot of examples of amazing event technology. On the main stage, you had what looked like live transcription. How did that work?
Yeah, so that came about because just best practice in events when you have a speaker is to include closed captions, obviously for accessibility reasons. But we wanted to really take that leap of faith and practice what we preach. Because the content was it was AI, like AI was the big topic of discussion coming through the keynotes. So we actually used an AI transcription. So it was listening real time to the speakers and creating the captions without human intervention. And it was a bold play because we had basically the captioning service that we use through the AV provider. You have the option to basically have a human captioner or an AI captioner, and we backed ourselves to use the AI version. And there is obviously like some human oversight that if there was like massive errors happening, we could call on someone to step in and help out. But, actually, and we didn't have any issues, which was amazing. But we, just let it run, and it did an amazing job. It was just as accurate, maybe if not more accurate than having a human doing it. The only wee consideration we had, which we worked with Nadine Higgins, who was our MC, she uses a lot of te reo in her speech, and we encouraged her to do so as well. So we worked with her in advance to train the AI on sort of some te reo phrases to do our best. I'm not sure if it was 100% accurate, but to do our best that when te reo was used, it was as accurate as we could make it as well. I guess the accuracy was probably on par with the accuracy in English. So,
True.
a bit of a job.
And it looked like you were filming everything. So it looked like pretty much every talk in all of the rooms were being filmed. That must be a lot of content. Have you been able to use that content following the event?
Yeah, we have. So we did record every speaking session at the event, both the main stage and the breakout sessions. So we ended up with, I think it was about 16 or 17 kind of like pieces of content that were all roughly between half an hour and an hour long, depending on the setting. So we did use that quite extensively afterwards in a number of ways. The keynote sessions went out, we put them out via YouTube, so that people could, if you couldn't make the event, you could watch them. All of the sessions went into a digital platform that we have that we can share with our customers. So if our salespeople were having conversations with their customers and they were sort of interested in a product, they could go, oh, well, we talked about this Accelerate. Here's, a video of a breakout session if you want to watch that and get that information. And then a lot of the sessions we took and turned it, repurposed into blog articles. Obviously, it's content we've used in our promotional videos. And so last year, because it was our first time, we dipped our toes in it. This year, second time around, we're being a lot more. We're dialing that up again. We've got like a whole plan on the content, what we're going to capture, how we're going to use it, and put it into a whole like dedicated nurture funnel afterwards.
I was going to say, Daz, that's often the case when you'll do an inaugural event and you'll do something the first time, and then usually you'll take the learnings. What are the key things that you might change this year round that you'll either amplify or pull back on?
Yeah, I think there was a handful of things. I think first of all, it's just understanding how an event flows and what people connect with and what they don't. So we tried to, last year we used a lot of interactive technology. We had a kind of like prize draw system that we were running where you could collect points and redeem them for merch and things like that. And we found that like a small number of people got really engaged with that, but actually on the whole, like not a lot of people did.
And do you think the goals this, like if we take it, because obviously let's think about this, would not have been a cheap event to put on, and I imagine that the size of prize is probably quite large. Government and there's some money on the table there, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So if we think about the reasons behind doing it, and are the KPIs kind of the same again this year? Like, did you get what you wanted out of it from a business perspective last? And you might not know the answer to this, but was it successful? And are you still looking to achieve the same thing out of Accelerate this year?
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of KPIs, yeah, we're basically set the same thing, and the KPIs are really quite simple for this event. I mean, there is an element of addition to pipeline. Or advancement of pipeline. That's the thing with events and particularly in the enterprise and government space, to win a contract takes a couple of years. There's RFP processes, there's all that kind of thing. So the attribution on ROI isn't sort of as easy as just like attended event, bought a product.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of work in the background to look at, I guess, the value of business that was attributed to the customers that attended, and a little bit of rationale on how things moved within the pipeline because of the event, even if it wasn't necessarily a new lead or one business.
Yeah, awesome.
That was one key metric. The other one was just around attendance. I think it's an invite only event. We do like an exit survey effectively from the event, and we do have sort of other brand sentiment surveying and other, metrics that we gather through the year where we can compare it. There's an interesting one that we had actually recently when we were trying to, evaluate some of the success of the event, which was, I guess, looking at in our general sort of market surveying, what is the consideration level of Spark for certain products or services, and then just weighing up what the sort of general market stat was, versus, if someone had attended Accelerate, what the stat was. And we could show really clearly that basically if you attended Accelerate, your consideration was, exponentially higher than if you hadn't. So, there's kind of those.
Well, that's great. That's a great statistic. That's that's a really good result to show, right?
Yeah. So it's very validating to be able to, take those insights back to the business, show that we are, having impact.
And how does events, specifically this event, work into your marketing strategies?
It is a big play. I think the way it works in with our, obviously we've got so much that we talk about that Accelerate on its own is kind of its own campaign that is scheduled alongside other things, starting from, save the dates and sort of teaser and reminder kind of stuff, through to invites, through to get ready to attend the event, live event comms, follow up and, nurture off the back. The life cycle of 1 year's event is actually quite long from a comms perspective.
And if you think about owned events, like this event is a Spark event, and attended events where Spark is participating in an industry or another client event, can you tell us about why you might do an owned event? Does that mean you don't go to industry events, or are you still going to industry events? Like, tell us about that mix.
It's a mixture of both. So when I say like 70% of my job is Spark Accelerate, the other 30% is marketing event. So that's trade stands at other people's conferences. We do other owned events like smaller networking, breakfasts, or workshops or webinars related to specific products. Those owned events are really good when you are engaging with an existing customer base and really you're operating in that thought leadership space.
So do you think there's a line that you could draw then where an owned event is probably more nurturing existing relationships, and maybe going to trade shows might be a little bit more business development? Would that be, generally speaking, kind of a good way to look at it, or would the lines be blurred?
I think in the B2B context, that's probably relatively safe to say.
Yeah.
I think if you're getting into B2C events, it's probably a little bit different because your goals are going to be a little bit different. You think consumer events, they're a lot more generated around probably more instant sales. And I'm trying to think of examples like, music festivals and things like that where you're selling tickets.
So for a busy marketer that has so many different hats, maybe they're not an event specialist, but maybe they're running marketing for their organization. What is your advice to them about how to think about events as a channel? What would be your advice to prioritizing and using events?
I think of when we do an event, it's not just the event itself. It's, the EDM invites that you're sending. It's the social media promo that you're doing to get people to register. You need that content to flow in. And the way that you build hype or you build interest is by building out compelling content within that event, both talking about it teasing it in advance to get people to attend, but then also leveraging it afterwards for those channels as well. Events are just a data and content rich channel, because you have the ability to create the content like Accelerate. We record all the sessions. You gather a lot of customer insight data as well, because, from that registration data and from the scanning people's name tags as they walk through an event, we know what workshops they went to. We know, the sessions they go to. We know what conversations they've had with staff at the stands. So then you get a picture of, obviously products they're interested in or solutions they're interested in that you can then look at for afterwards, and either equip your salespeople to go have those conversations. Hey, I see you, really engaged with satellite connectivity across the event. Are you looking at satellite solutions? How can we continue this conversation? Afterwards, how do you give everyone a personalized, here's your highlights from this event, because, we know you went to X, Y, Z sessions. So this is the stuff that you engaged with. Here's the recording of that session again, if you wanted to watch it again. Here's the slide deck if you wanted to, share it with your colleagues when you're telling them about what you learned. So, the whole thing is that event is kind of like a center piece of a whole campaign. And it's kind of limitless.
Do you have any watch outs, like any kind of gotchas that marketers should be aware of when running an event?
Yeah, I think my main one is events aren't necessarily always the solution. I think there's a lot of people who jump into the idea of an event before thinking about what they actually want to get out of it. And that can end up like sort of creating an event that people go like, oh, that was fun, but actually what's the follow-up, or what sort of benefit did it actually bring?
I think that's a good point, though. I think, even with that an example, I think you're right. It's like any piece of marketing should have a purpose. We don't just do things because there happens to be a line in the budget to say, where can we put that today? Let's do an event. I think tying it to your customer audience, to your growth strategy, like it should be delivering against something in theory, right? And so, as you said at the beginning, Spark's got a really clear goal around winning business and government, and this is one way to foster that relationship and kind of build that stickiness and that brand.
Well, thanks, Daz, for coming on and sharing your experience.
All right, thank you so much, Daz. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
And we're back. How good was Daz? It was really good to have that B2B perspective with Spark Accelerate. Steph, you've got some really cool B2C event experiences.
Yeah, I think one of the things that obviously you and I have been talking about is context and where you show up with your event. So if we think about when you're turning up at somebody else's event, there are also options in front of you for that. So one of the examples I can give here, which I thought was really genius. So I worked on a cheese brand in New Zealand called Food Snob, and again, we would look at the calendar and there's a whole bunch of events, food-related events that we could choose to be involved in. And the obvious ones are the food-based events, right? So there's lots of those in and around. And really interestingly, one of the most successful events that Food Snob has been part of was the boat show.
Brilliant. Genius, Steph. Yeah. This is genius.
Yeah. And I think what was great about this is contextually, you think about this. You are probably one of the only cheese brands there. You've got a whole lot of people who are arguably have got some disposable income, looking for, they're open to really great food. They've got a life. They're making a lifestyle choice to buy a boat. What goes really well on a boat, Ben?
Cheese. Oh my God. And crackers and maybe a bit of fish.
Exactly. And also, you think about the context that you're in, probably looking really affordable to buy a $10 cheese in the face of a jet ski. Like you do a price comparison. It's not hard to make a decision. You can go home feeling like you've bought something at the boat show, even if it just was a couple of wheels of cheese. So that worked really well for a brand that didn't have a huge budget. Having said that, Food Snob would also be at the likes of the food show, because also those things are really important. It's to be with your peers is also part of the marketing strategy. So I thought that was just, when I heard that they're at the boat show, I was like, but why? And it makes sense.
And I think this is a key part of the marketing strategy, which is know your audience. And if you know your audience, you know who you want to buy your products. If those people are at the boat show, be at the boat show. And I think this also resonates in all of the channels. It's like, know your customer. Is your customer, what TV shows are they watching? What social media are they on? What newspapers do they read? What radio do they listen to?
Yeah.
What podcasts are they listening to? Do they listen to Canned, the marketing podcast? So know where your audiences are, and then you can have some great understanding about where to show up to get in front of your audience and position yourself above your competitors. And I think that's the key beauty on Food Snob at the boat show is their competitors weren't there. Maybe they will be next year.
Yeah, we've given away the secret. And then the other thing I just wanted to note, for people who don't have access to a lot of funding, I really do appreciate that it can be hard to turn up to the likes of a food show, and it's expensive to get a stand. And
it's a time. It's time and budget.
So there were two really amazing experiences I had at the Auckland Food Show last month, and they honestly, and I bought product at both of them, and they really stood out to me. And one of them was a chili oil from Mangawhai, and it was literally the tiniest of startups, and it was this little stand in the corner, and it's called Punch, and she makes chili oil with shallots and chili flakes, and it's in olive oil, and the jar was $30. But it's amazing, and just standing there and having that conversation with this woman. So that was such a lovely story. She had only decided to come up maybe 2 days prior to buy a stand. Cost her probably $1,000 to $1,500. Now, when you're a startup, that's a decent amount of money. I'm a loyal customer. Like, just having a chat to her, she was there with her daughter for the entire weekend. It's a great product. So that was one example. But I think an element of getting and having some face-to-face time as a business with your customers is absolutely invaluable.
So the event is done. You're exhausted because you've planned it, you've executed it, but that's really just the start. And I think a lot of marketers are leaving things on the table by not having a post-event strategy. So, Steph, what are some of the things that marketers can do post-event to really extract maximum value?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, obviously what you would like to do at any event is to capture names and email addresses, because that's your database. And these are people who are already warmed up to your brand. They've spoken to you, they've had an experience. If you can, get their details, email them afterwards. You might have a go in the draw. You might ask for some feedback. So you can send a survey out and say, look, how did you find it? Did you buy the product? Did you like it? Do a go in the draw, do an offer. And then, if you've got their permission to contact them, by all means, now you've got a fostered relationship. And then the other obvious one is content. If you can capture some content and make that event live for a little bit longer outside the actual day, it just adds to the reach, and you can justify the expense a little bit more as well.
Indeed. And if you're a Daz, you've got probably hundreds of minutes of footage that you can use in social and email and video for a long time. Good.
Yeah, perfect. What about you? What about in B2B world?
B2B world, it is the same. It's content, it's following up. Similar to the actions that are taken in B2C, you want those leads, you want those emails, you want the feedback, you want the event to be the start of a conversation, and that conversation should follow up. So the sales team should be following up on leads.
100%.
The marketing team should be putting people into nurture journeys for email. One-on-one meetings should be booked. The CRM should be being updated. All of those things. And I think a lot of B2B events do that just because it's lead gen.
100%. That was exciting. I love events. I feel like this is such a topic that's close to my heart. But we've also got a really exciting topic for next week. And what's awesome is that we've planned it.
We have planned
Yes.
it. We have. So the next episode is the career episode. So if you are a marketer and you are thinking about your next job, whether that be next week, next month, or next year, this is the episode for you. So whether you want to land a job in an agency, in the brand that you've been setting your sights on, or maybe you want to freelance, we're going to be talking about our experiences and giving you the lowdown on how to land your dream marketing job.
Amazing. All right. Thanks so much, Ben.
Thanks, Steph. Enjoy your weekend and see you soon.
See ya.
Thanks, everyone.